Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the Know Your Gear podcast, episode 310. I hope everybody had a fantastic week. Mine was a fast-paced week. That's good, right? That's good when the week goes by fast. I'm sure we have a lot of guitar stuff to talk about. As always, before we get started, just want to let you know, if you see somebody with a blue name and a blue wrench, that means they're a moderator. They're here to help with anything they can help you with. And if you see somebody in the green name with an avatar, they're a member. They're basically like the patrons. We have patrons and channel members, and that's how we sponsor these episodes. So thank them for that. And thank you guys for being here, hanging out, watching, liking, subscribing, you name it, sharing, all the things you do that make the channel do well. I appreciate that. So we have a lot to talk about. I'm going to start actually fast and easy with a recap of last week's episode, with a piece of information that I forgot to tell you guys that is probably important. So the fast recap was last week, there was a question what was the most disgruntled customer I've ever dealt with? And I explained that we had a young gentleman who was so upset that he pulled a gun. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to go back to that episode. They're time-stamped. You just go right to it. And you may want to get yourself up to speed. Anyways, my wife was actually at an appointment during the show last week, so she didn't get to see the show until after it had aired. When she saw the title of the show, she was curious and watched it, and she's like, yep. And then she said, I can't believe you forgot to say the most important thing of that entire story. And before she said anything, I went, oh. Okay, so here's the recap. A young man came in the store and he became disgruntled with the policy of the store that after you're done with playing guitar, you can play with as many guitars as you want, as much as you want. But when you're done, just bring it to the counter. We wipe it down. We tune it up. We put it back on the wall for you. That way, the next person can experience a good, clean, in-tune instrument. This seemed to upset the young man to the point where, if you guys recall last week, he left, he came back, and he pulled a weapon to let us know how unhappy he was with this us. I would say policy, but it was just us. But the important part of the story I left out, which I can't believe I left out, and that's what happens when you have a live show, is how they caught him. Because what I didn't say, last week what I said was he left, and the police came, and they locked down the school that was next to us, because that's what he got in trouble for, by the way. He didn't get in trouble for, I don't think, brandishing a firearm. I think what he actually got in trouble for was having a weapon in a school zone, because we were literally, the school was behind the store. I mean, it was a real public school. So he was literally within school limits or school area. So that was enough to get him in trouble. And that's what they made them go crazy for, looking for him. The problem was how they found him. This is how they found him. The police came into the store, obviously after he had left, and they asked us if they could have the footage of the incident, and a forensic person showed up and said, could you tell me anywhere you think he touched so we can test for fingerprints? And we said, well, actually, the guitar on the wall, he put it up like, how you hold it like a guitar like this, and he, just like I would hold that up and put it on the wall like that. That's how he did it. So we watched her walk over. She opens up her little CSI kit. She dusts off, and there are 10, and I remember, because I remember like her going, well, there are 10 perfect fingerprints on this guitar. And she dusted all 10 prints, and then they did their thing, and then they left. And unfortunately for that young gentleman, he was in their system for something else he must have done. They don't disclose that to me. And the fingerprints, literally, that and the other evidence, they picked him up the next day. And I should also point out, he did go to jail. The reason I know he did go to jail, so in other words, we were never involved after that incident. They obviously, fingerprints, footage, you name it, that's all they needed to get him. However, what happened was, how I know he went to jail was, I learned from that incident that because you're listed as like a victim of the crime, I want to say a couple months later, it felt like let's say two, could have been 3. It wasn't a long time, it wasn't a short time. I received a letter from the city of Chandler, Arizona, saying, hey, this person who you're listed as a victim of a crime of was released or is being released today, and we're just notifying you that they're released and that they have they're ordered by the courts to never go around you or your property again. And that's the last we ever saw of them. So my wife, when she said it to me, I felt pretty like, I can't believe I forgot the point where, the irony is if he wouldn't have pulled the weapon, we would have wiped the guitar down. Well, then technically, I guess if he wouldn't have pulled the weapon, there wouldn't be no crime. But you understand, like, the irony of being upset that we were going to wipe down the guitars, and then literally not wiping down the guitars became the thing that caught him. So my wife made me feel really dumb when she's like, I can't believe that's the part you left out. I'm like, yeah, I guess, yeah, that was pretty relevant. So that's the recap for everyone that doesn't know what I'm talking about. You got to go back and watch that. I just wanted to give everybody else an update of the part I left. So John Porter says, hey, let's get into guitar stuff. He says, hey, the Parker is eye-catching. Isn't it, though? It is. It's my favorite Parker, the white one. Yes, thank you for saying that. Mostly I get people going, that thing's ugly. There's a guy who really hates it. He was like, man, please don't put the Parker on the wall. And I'm like, I love it. So something I got asked, I'm going to talk about this. Something that I've been asked a lot is about this Parker. I'm pointing at this white Parker Fly. And this Standberg, which is a green Standberg 6-string. How am I hanging those on the wall? Well, the Parker, if you own a Parker Fly guitar, if you got one originally, I don't know if it was all years, but for a lot of the years, and definitely the years we sold them, they came with literally a plastic insert that let you hang them on the walls. So it's a little piece of plastic. Now, obviously they don't make that anymore, but I found a guy on eBay who was 3D printing them, and I bought one of them, and he obviously just copied the original one they had, which was cut out of like plexiglass or something, and he 3D printed it. Somebody asked me about that. I wanted to share it with him, but I can't find him on eBay anymore. I even have my original auction and stuff, and he's not posting anything, so I don't know, but that's where I got that. So there, just to let you know, that is a device that exists. It's a piece of plastic that literally inserts behind the headstock and then lets you hang it. The Standberg, how is it hanging on the wall? In the mail one day, no idea why. Just there was a small like bubble envelope from Standberg Guitars, and in it was obviously a 3D printed wall hanger. If you guys are into Standberg Guitars, I saw Ola Standberg talking about how they're trying to design a new wall hanger. I don't know if this is one of the prototypes they thought of and they thought to just send it to me. I don't know if it's the final one and that's what they sent me. I don't know if it's in production because I can't find anything about it. I've been meaning to reach out to them. In fact, I think I just saw an email that I have to respond to them about, but I don't know what it is. I just know I was able to stick it on my wall and hang my guitar on the wall. So I hung my Standberg. So hopefully it's coming if you have a Standberg because it works pretty good. So far I've been feel pretty good about it. Feel pretty safe about it. It's a pretty nice little wall hanger. So you know, I didn't actually mount it to my wall. I actually was able to use it and add it to an already existing string swing that was mounted there. So I didn't have to make any new holes or anything. I can actually take that the Standberg hanger off and just use the string swing again. So I don't think that's how it was intended to be used, but I was able to manipulate it and use it that way. It works pretty good. So that's how those two guitars are hanging there. And then everybody who comes late to the show will be asking me that later, but for the rest of you, that's what it is. Okay. So let's see. Yeah, Brian says that's the only reason I sold my headless Kiesel. I couldn't hang it. Oh, Brian, that's such the worst answer. It's the worst one. It's the worst one. Look, I feel your pain. I feel like one of my most beautiful instruments I own is my Kiesel Vader bass. I think it's a work of art, and I want to go back and hang some sideways hangers up again to hang them there again. I do agree. I want to hang the headless guitars from Kiesel. So I actually used to, if you guys know, I used to hang my Kiesel's headless ones. I actually added a little leather strap that would let me hang them, and I don't know why I stopped. So maybe I should go back and do that. It was an easy modification, and it didn't do anything. Brian also asked, is that the new Danelectro? That is the new Danelectro. I don't, somewhere behind me, this red guitar. This is the new Danelectro 59. It's like the 3 single coil guitar. I don't know much about it. Here's what I do know. The owner of Danelectro guitars is also the owner of Snark. I don't know if you guys know that connection. Snark and Danelectro are same guy, same owns them. And he knows I like Snarks, and he sent us 100 Snarks to give away. And because he did that, even, you know, like I said, it's a co-sponsor thing. So you gotta understand, he gave us 100 Snarks, but we're paying the shipping, which is about $1,000 in shipping once we get through all these Snarks at about $10 to $15 a whack. But I sent him a video where I said, hey, look, I put you as a sponsor of the video because I really appreciate what you're doing for the community here. You know, it's really cool to give away these $30 Snarks to people. And he said, no, thank you. And he goes, I'd like to send you the new Danelectro. So it showed up, and of course I know nothing about it other than I've strummed on it for 3 seconds and it's been on the wall. So video coming soon, I'm sure, right? And since we're going to do that, let's do the giveaway. We're doing a giveaway. Super easy. It's in the link down below. We're giving away this. Okay. This is a Belltone from Belltone Guitars. So if you're not familiar with Belltone guitars, I did a review of their guitars. They do this really cool guitar that's like a Tele meets a Les Paul. So they're made, I believe, in New Jersey. They're a USA based company, and they are a small builder, and they wanted to do a giveaway. Okay, so it's really cool. And like I said, the giveaway things are pretty simple. I don't get anything for this. Okay, they sent me the gig bag, and they're gonna pay to ship it, and it's all goes to you guys. And so that's what I'm willing to trade when it comes to the live show, is if we can, you know, do something for the community, you know, give you guys something cool. So here's what he sent me. He sent me this $100 Deluxe gig bag, gel packed in the back. Where do you see the inside? This beautiful, look at that. Right, it'll fit pretty much. I got because they're Velcro moving things in here. You can move around stuff. So I got a Tele to fit in there, a Strat to fit in there, a Les Paul. It will fit most guitars. It's really thick, padded, beautiful blue interior. This is a blue case, by the way, if it doesn't come out in my camera. There are pictures if you hit the link down below to King Sumo, which is a third-party website. So no one's going to contact you through YouTube. You just go there. When it pulls, it will randomly pull the winner for us. It'll tell me your email address. I email you personally. That's how simple it is. You'll get an email from me, and I always will, you know, communicate with you now. So with you, we're giving away that case, a Snark tuner, some Know Your Gear picks and stickers. So obviously $100 case. You have to be a U.S. resident. You have to be in the U.S. It's just a shipping thing. And we're going to give that away next Friday. I just wanted to talk about that. Thank you, Belltone, for that. You can check out their website if you want to check out their cool guitars, or watch my video about his guitars. Like I said, he's pretty cool. And maybe check out his Instagram. I put all kinds of stuff where you get points, you know, more entries if you do certain things like that. There are little tasks that let you, kind of makes it like a little scavenger hunt. That's how we did in the past. And a lot of you guys seem to like it. And like I said, I'm happy to do that stuff, to do giveaways like that. It's fun. We were doing them on Instagram, but to be honest with you, time-wise now, I don't know how I'm staying up on what I'm staying up with now. Okay. Thank you, Brian, for the link to Belltone guitars. And like I said, it's a super, super good gig bag. I think he said it was $150. I valued it at $100 just to be safe, right? When you're doing contests, I don't want to overvalue something and then somebody get it and go, hey, I thought this was valued higher. So definitely a $100 gig bag. One of the nicest gig bags I put a guitar into and checked out. So definitely get it. And of course, you're going to get a $30 Snark Air rechargeable tuner. And to be honest with you, it's really about the Know Your Gear picks. Do I have some? Oh, I do. Look, I have them show. This is what you get. You get the Know Your Gear with both logos. Both logos on the picks. And you'll get some picks and some stickers. So check that out. And like I said, link down below. You can do that anytime you want or not. It's up to you guys. So Curtis C says, how about if we have a U.S. shipping address? That's fine for me. When I say U.S. resident, I'm sure there's some kind of reasoning for that in the contest, but really all it is this. There's probably all kinds of rules and regulations. I'm just a dude on the internet. I'm not going to try to figure out all the laws around the world. I just understand that I cannot ship a gig bag in a guitar box. That's what's going to ship to you, to Europe or to Asia. It's just too expensive for us to ask someone to pay. I'm figuring this is probably going to cost $50-$60 a ship because it's light, so that's more than enough to ask Belltone guitars to pay to ship this case. You know, like I said, I don't want them to have to pay too much. Trying to keep it reasonable. So there you go. And plus, Brian says customs is a pain in the ass. Probably is. Okay. Okay. Sean says, if you live outside the US, what is the best way to get KYG merch? There's no KYG merch right now. Sean is still working on that. My wife's still working on that stuff with the new company. I know it's slow moving. You know, here's what it is. As you guys know, we were very successful. Look, we sold thousands, tens of thousands, thousands and thousands and thousands of Know Your Gear shirts around the world. I mean, there's an insane amount of money. I have 2,600 photos of you guys with shirts that were sent to me. So, I mean, that's just how many photos are sent. A lot of shirts. And it was very successful for us for a long time. And then it started fading off and not doing as well. And of course, when that happens, you look, you know, especially when I do more views now than I did, you know, years ago. So the channel grows in view content and subscriber content. So the channel has been gaining momentum, especially with the podcast over the last couple of years, but the merch sales have been dropping. And through a pretty extensive investigation that we put into place, we were out to find out what it is. It was the merch. It was the manufacturer making the merch was just making crappy stuff. And you guys were just getting frustrated with it. So we have a new person in place, but you got to understand, like, she's slow moving because she doesn't want to have to deal with the fact that if she, you know, is it once bitten, twice shy? Is that the thing? No, you know what I mean? But so far, everything so far has been great with the new people. So hopefully that will come out soon and there'll be all kinds of cool stuff to share with you guys. And I appreciate you guys asking me stuff like that. Trust me, that stuff's a nice little revenue stream for us. It's not huge, but it's a nice little revenue stream to have on the channel. And it's been missing for months, you know, almost all year. So it's not a huge thing, but it's, you know, let's just say it could that in itself could sponsor 2 or 3 major videos for us if we had that going back up again. Let's see. Let's get back into guitar stuff. Hold on. Some people are asking me what the guitar that, since we're just doing this stuff, one of the guitars behind me, the turquoise and white, or I'm going to say ivory, kind of like ivory white and surf green kind of thing, is a Nags guitar. If you guys are curious, that video, I think I told you last week. Let me tell you right now what it is. I can tell you because it's on the schedule. It is scheduled for May 2nd. So you should be able to watch that video about that guitar, if I'm pointing at right now, which is a Nags guitar, May 2nd. Okay. Let's look at some questions I have already pinned up and ready to go. Randy says, hey, any comments, thoughts about the WVH, I'm saying the Wolfgang Van Halen, releasing new guitars, no trims, hardtails, and apparently 24 frets. Any thoughts on that? I mean, I'm excited for this. You know, I don't know about you guys, you know, Eddie's passing was a huge deal for me. It was like the end of an era for me. And it was just right in the middle of COVID too. So it was just like a punch in the gut after you just got your punch on the chin, you know? And I've met Wolfgang once. I met him when he played with Mark Tremonti, and he was like the nicest guy, you know, you can meet, because they, you know, Mark and those guys meet people, the audience, they meet them after the shows. And, you know, and he sounds so down to earth kind of guy. And, he's his father's a legend. He's obviously does well. So, you know, you never know how that's going to go. And so I think it's a heavy weight to carry that kind of legacy forward. And, but I think, in my opinion, one of the smartest things he can do to honor his father is not just milk his father. And I don't think that's what he's doing. I think Eddie's core existence is Eddie wanted what Eddie wanted, right? And he was never happy. He was never happy, right? I one of the funniest things ever happened to me was I got to see Eddie Van Halen twice at these private events because I was an EVH dealer in these private rooms. And the second time we met him, which is when I got my picture with him and stuff, that's what he talked about. He's never happy with anything. He's like, I want better. I want this to be. He goes, in fact, what happened was it was at the actual Wolfgang release party. So I was at the Wolfgang release party. It was where they released the very first EVH Wolfgang guitar. And he was talking about the guitar, and in the first couple sentences, he was like, if you think this guitar is great, wait till you see what I have coming next. And I don't remember how many people. I mean, there's probably in the room, there was probably 60 people, could have been 100. You know how, room sizes are hard to gauge, with people when they're, depending on the size, but wasn't a lot of people. But there was definitely a dozen people or so that kind of snickered, laughed like that, like kind of like, cause the way he said it, here he is unveiling he pulls the cloth off the guitar and, and he's like, the new Wolfgang, and everybody's like, whoa. And then before you could finish the cheers of the guitar, he's like, where do you see what I have next? It's even going to be better. That's what he said. It was even going to be better. And then a few people like snickered, laughed, right? Like a snicker or a laugh. I don't know what you call it. Like just a kind of like a, like a hiccup, kind of thing where they're like and he stops and he says, look, I'm always thinking the next thing. I'm always trying to come up with the next thing. And as soon as I'm done with something, it doesn't matter. I have a better idea coming forward. And that's what he was talking about. And what's funny about that is, I think Wolfgang, obviously being his son and being in that environment, I think that's what we're going to see and remember, he's a younger person. So he's going to see the world a lot differently than, I got to have a Floyd Rose. I got to, right. I got, not everything's going to be what was the height of the best of the 80s? Something is going to be like, what is it now? Or maybe back in the past, even further back, and pull it forward. So I kind of like that they are messing with other things. A semi-hollow, guitar. I think the Wolfgang model I saw is semi-hollow, of course. I like, why not put 24 frets? There's certain things that, you can understand. There's certain things, like I remember the first time I played the EVH 5150 amp, the very first one, the 100 watt head. I absolutely loved it. And the designer, which was James Brown. No, did James work on that one? No, not that one. I forgot his name. I thought it was Michael. I feel bad. Somebody's going to correct me. Put the designer at Fender. But I remember they were there showing us the amps and stuff. We were talking to them. And passively, I just said, I wish it had reverb. And he said, yeah, me too. And I said, oh, I'm surprised you didn't do it. And he goes, Eddie didn't want reverb. And I laughed and I said, well, that's because Eddie plays in Coliseum, so I'm sure he has reverb. The rest of us need to add reverb back in. And so, and a lot of times when I was a dealer for the EVH brand, a lot of things that were explained to me were explained exactly with that statement. That's what Eddie wanted. I'd be like, oh, you did this. Oh, I'm surprised you didn't do this. And they go, that's what Eddie wanted. Right. And so that's great. But now maybe with Wolfgang, we could get a couple things that are not always just what Eddie wanted. Maybe it's something, maybe Wolfgang will listen to the community a little bit more and say, hey, it's what my dad wanted plus what you guys wanted. Maybe there's new opportunities there to advance this brand. And I like that they're willing to play with that. Unfortunately, I'm also, like I said before, when I said, you don't mess around with the House of Van Halen, when I did that speech a couple episodes ago about how certain iconic guitar players, you just don't, their fan base is diehard to the point where sometimes, you can upset them very easily. And then I understand when somebody's so passionate about something. But that being said, I think it needs a little bit of the shaking, a little bit of the, let's see what happens. And by the way, Eddie did hardtails too. I just hope they do, like I said, something that always honors Eddie, but something that also honors Eddie by not being exactly what Eddie would do. Because I think Eddie, if a lot of you are probably fathers. I'm a father. I would love the idea of my son taking what I love and then putting what he loves into it, and not necessarily just doing this, everything is just what my dad would want. I'd want him to have his own visions and fun too. And so there you go. Yeah, it's funny. Jesse says, I just want a version of Wolfgang's striped bass. That's what I said to Wolfgang when I met him at the Tremonti show. I shook his hand and we talked for a few seconds because he's, we're on an assembly line, right? They're shaking hands and talking. And I said, hey, they got to do a Wolfgang bass. And he goes, you think so? And I'm like, oh, absolutely. A Wolfgang bass would be amazing. I'm like, it sounded great on stage. It looks great. You should do it. And he was sincere when he was like shocked that somebody was like, really, you want that? I'm like, well, yeah, of course we want that. It's great. And they still haven't done it. So hopefully he'll do that. I'm always hoping that's going to be part of the future too, that they'll do a Wolfgang bass. So So there you go. Okay, let's go. Yeah, David Kornblatt says Eddie really created the Super Strat. Sure, I 100% agree with that. I mean, and there's always that argument. Somebody's always going to argue when somebody did something a second sooner, or somebody didn't know about this person, somewhere else doing it. But I mean, it's obviously it's not just who creates the idea that's important, but it's also who makes the idea popular, because that's really what affects us. So yeah, I agree on both those. So, and then Sean says, when they say that's what Eddie wanted, they are talking about Eddie Johnson, the accountant. I know what you're saying, and maybe I don't, but Sean, let me put it this way. I see that. Look, I see everything you guys see on the internet too. I see a lot of people saying, oh, they're just cashing in. I see all that stuff too. I've never felt that way, with the Eddie Van Halen brand. I've never felt like it was a cash in. Look, of course they're going to make money from it, but I never felt like that there was as much desire to cash in on the brand of guitars and amps. If Eddie Van Halen want to cash in, he can cash in just on shirts and hats and merch and stuff and little, Funko Pops and stuff. I mean, there's tons of stuff that you can just make to have, revenue coming in, if that's your goal. I really believe this. I really believe that people who are successful, interviewing them, what I've learned with some of the really genius, successful people, and Eddie definitely falls in that, is sometimes they become, I want to say, plagued with an idea that they are just a thing, and that's not what they want to be. So here's what I mean by that. Eddie is an amazing guitar player, but I watch him. If you watch interviews with him, like I said, I've seen him personally speak twice in two different personal environments. And just watching those environments, watching him and his tonality, his voice, the way he comes across, it seems like that wasn't enough. So like when I interviewed Mark Tremonti, there's a rule I follow, which is if somebody says something 3 times, it matters. So by the way, guys, since there are a lot of you are guys, if your wife mentions something to you 3 times in the last 24 hours, and even if she says it doesn't matter, it matters. Same with the women and their husbands or boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever you want to, whatever. So the point is that when somebody mentions something 3 times, like that's when I pay attention. Like the 3rd time I hear somebody say something, I'm like, okay, it's coming. I always say oozes out of you. It comes up, it bubbles up, it comes out, even if they want to pretend like it's not a big deal. And Tremonti said something was interesting. He's mentioned the word songwriter at least 3 times in the interview. When I would say guitar player, he would always come back to songwriter. He's a songwriter. And it seemed to me very clearly, very quickly, what I've seen in the past with other guitar players, that some people, just because they're successful, you think for a lot of us, hey, we just want to be successful at one thing. One thing would be nice, right? We would all dream to be a one-hit wonder. We'd all dream to be really good at the guitar, really dream to be successful at one thing. But some people who really gauge that success, that drive in them, makes them immediately want the next thing, the next drive, the next success. And so with Tremonti, I definitely got that it was important to him that he be remembered or seen as a songwriter as much as a guitar player. And Eddie also seems to be very focused that he's not just a guitar player that's really good. He's a songwriter. But then if you watch interviews, especially the Smithsonian interview with Eddie Van Halen and many others, it seemed very important to Eddie that he be seen as an inventor. And even so much, I think that's where the Les Paul and Eddie Van Halen talk started, in this kindred kind of spirit. I think Eddie wanted deep down, I think he wanted to be like Les Paul, or seen that way as like the guy who invented one of the greatest guitars of all time, Les Paul, right? I think Eddie wanted to be seen as like a Leo Fender, as someone like that. And that's rightly so. It makes total sense. That's my impressions. That's my impressions of what I saw. And as a dealer and selling the stuff and dealing with EVH, the brand, which is distributed and sold by Fender. Please understand, it's not owned by Fender. They are, like I said, they're like a commercial kitchen. They build the stuff, they ship the stuff, they do the advertising, the marketing. I mean, they're just essentially like but the Eddie Van Halen estate owns that brand. Eddie owns that brand. And with that ownership of that brand, I, as a dealer, have felt the woes of when product doesn't deliver on time, because they're like, I told you, it's always the same story. It was always, hey, I thought we were getting that on the first. Like, Eddie said, no, it's not right yet. We're not launching, So like I said, it could be what you guys are saying. I'm just telling you, that's just my thoughts on that. And I can't imagine Wolfgang is much different than his father in that regard. That's just my thoughts. So let's see. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just skimming through some stuff. Okay, let's go to the next subject. I'm just looking to see if there was anything we can flesh out on that subject. We're gonna, Mr. Two Hats says, it's funny. Hey, Phil, I really like the sounds you were getting out of the PRS Sonzera in that Squire video this week. How are you finding the new model? Have a great weekend. I believe I saw another thing about the Sonzera, so I want to tie it back in. Somebody said, oh yeah, nope, same question. I was just thought there was another thing about that. So the Sonzera is great. I used it in both the Fender Telecaster video, the Ultra, and I used it in the Squire video because it seemed to lend itself to both those guitars. Like I said, I try to match up the amps that I use in the videos with the guitars. So obviously, one guitar was $2,000. That amp's about $1,000. I'm like, that's relatable, right? I can see somebody who owns a guitar that's $1,500 to $2,000 having a guitar, an amp that's $1,000. The Squire was like $500. Same thing. I think it's relatable. People who spend $500-600 for a guitar, they might have a guitar, an amp up to $1,000. And of course, I'm just generally speaking. So I really like that I could put those, and especially since those two products were back to back, it was kind of nice to run through the same type of amp for that. PRS sent out the amp and asked me to check it out, and that's what I'm doing. I'm checking it out and sharing it with you guys and stuff. I don't have an official review planned for it. I don't know what the dividend of interest would be on that. I don't know if anyone's super interested in a standalone video on that. So I kind of put it in the videos. Somebody asked me, I think that's the question I missed. Somebody asked me, am I putting it in the videos to see like if it's worth doing a review? That's exactly what we're doing. We're putting in the videos, and then, if we get enough interest, we'll talk about it. Essentially, you've heard it, you've seen it in those videos. That's pretty much the review. The only thing I would add is somebody asked in the comments of one of those videos, I saw it, it said, does it still make a lot of noise like the first one that has a, like a noise even on the clean channel? Yes, the answer is the new Sonzera does the same thing the old Sonzera does, which is exactly what the Supersonic 22 by Fender does, which is it has this like low volume hiss coming through at all times. And something I've experienced with a lot of amps. I'd like to say inexpensive amps, but even expensive amps seem to do it. Not all of them, but it's something you hear and deal with. If that bugs you, I would definitely stay away from the Sonzera, just like I'd say stay away from the Supersonic 22. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but I find a lot of times when I get away from that sound, I've spent so much money on the amp that I obviously it makes sense that it doesn't do it. But that's my thoughts on that. And then William asked, hey, Phil, do you have any experience with Budda amps? I do. I've owned a couple Buddas over the years. I rarely hear them talked about, yet most of the people who have them seem to like them. Sure, I remember when Joe Bonamassa was like courting with Budda amps. Remember, there's an amazing clip of Joe Bonamassa playing a Budda amp, and he sounded amazing. And I think that's what was happening in that video, was they were discussing him playing the amplifiers. As far as I know, and I'm just going off of information that's probably years dated, obviously in a video I made. So things change. In other words, this information was accurate at one time. I don't know how accurate post-COVID it is. They were owned by PV. PV acquired them. I'm looking on their website now to see if there's anything alluding to that. As far as I know, they're still made in the USA. Let me share with you. Here are the lineup. Well, interesting to say about them is the first thing you see when you pull up their website is they're all on sale. So I don't know if that's, well, it's MSRP. So this might be just like the fake price, the MSRP, and then this is the map, but you can see them right here. I had a Super Drive 30. It was amazing. I loved it. It's just one of those things. I didn't keep it. I found something, I think in my case, it was all about reverb. I was looking for an amp that had a tone like that with reverb built in. So I didn't have to like bring a pedal with me all the time for reverb, but great amps. Not sure why you don't see a whole lot of them. Maybe not a lot of money put behind them in marketing. I mean, that's a big deal. You got to understand, this is a lot of people, the Rickenbacker thing came up a couple weeks ago, and I talked about social media and marketing. And you have to understand, this is just, from my perspective, a lot of companies are not you're going to see less and less of companies that don't embrace social media to some extent. I'm not saying social media is the key. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that you have to. What I'm saying is, like I said, it's so inexpensive and it's so highly effective that the brands that have done it, it's almost like if you do it a little bit, you can really help your company out. So if you're a small company, think about that. But what I've noticed is that anyone who does it effectively in any way, social media marketing, they see the dividends so fast that they almost like it becomes like heroin and they can't stop. And that's why to you guys, you're like, why do we always see the same 50 brands just shoved in our face on social media? Well, it's because those 50 brands they're gulping up the inexpensive marketing like crazy, because it's so effective for its price, right? A customer acquisition cost. In other words, the ability, what you're paying and to what you're getting is so effective. They just hit it and go with it. And I've had companies, look, I have a Dr. Z amp, and I've proudly showed it in many videos, and I've always have it in the background. I'm in a different area, so it's different background, but I love the Dr. Z amps. I love Dr. Z amps. I like him. I think he does effective videos. If you haven't seen the owner of Dr. Z, his explanation is great. But I reached out to Dr. Z when I had bought one of their amps. I needed to buy another one because I wanted to get to, I had a combo. I wanted to go to a head. I reached out to him, asked him something really easy like, hey, I'm on social media. I have a channel with this many subs. Do you have any kind of pricing or anything like that? That's essentially like, hey, can I kind of get a dealer cost kind of deal, or kind of get some sweetheart deal if I buy it from you guys directly, as a marketing play? And they were very kind. And here's why I say that. A lot of companies, they won't even respond to you. Most companies don't respond. Dr. Z took the time, the company took the time to respond and basically say, no, we don't do social media. I'm like, okay. But so, that made me champion that amp even more with them, because, hey, I appreciate they have their own ideology and their own way of doing things. They didn't insult me. That's all I really care about. I'm not there to insult them. I don't want to be insulted. There are companies that will go, what do you mean social media? I'm like, I don't know. You get 1 million views. That's something, right? But you get the idea. So some companies don't embrace it, and that's fine. You don't have to. Like I said, I'm not saying if you don't embrace the social media marketing, you won't be successful. What I'm saying is the companies that have done it are going to probably pound us to death with it because it's so cheap. They're so used to the old way of doing things. There's a major company, and I can't disclose this. That's what's sad. Okay. I just don't have any way to explain it other than this. One of the largest brands out there, okay, decided they were doing all kinds of advertising, everything, right? And they did some social media stuff with a bunch of channels. And that's how I know I was one of the channels they were working with in these events and stuff. And then they basically decided, when they saw what happened, when they saw how you guys, again, it's never about anybody on YouTube, it's about the viewers, you guys. When they saw how many people bought stuff afterwards for what they paid, which is virtually nothing, they have been for the last 4 years. For the last 4 years, they don't do any advertising that isn't social media. Isn't that crazy? And you know what? I can't tell you who it is, but I can allude. They also don't deal with mom and pop shops anymore. They shut up their mom and pop shops. They went to an online only system, and they literally went to social media, and they have now looked back and they are making tons of money and keeping tons of their money. And again, it's not Positive Grid. It's like Positive Grid. Think big. It's like a big company that we've actually talked about on the podcast. So that's just the way, like I said, some companies embrace it. So with the boot amps, that's my long answer, just like Rickenbacker. They're great stuff. It's fantastic stuff. They're just not pushing a lot of marketing on this platform, on these platforms, so you're not seeing it here. But maybe I'll get it on the channel. Like I said, I try. If it's just because a company doesn't work with YouTubers, doesn't mean anything with me. If I can get it on the platform, I'll get it on the platform. I'll figure out if I can get a Budda amp on there because I think they're great. Hold on a second. Michael Rosa, who's a member, says, "Hey, Guild Surfcaster, Guild Surfcaster Deluxe. Have you seen it?" Have I seen it? It's funny you say Surfcaster Deluxe. I'm thinking like the Charvel, and then remember Eastwood did one. Let's copy this. Let's see if I can share the picture. What it is? Oh yeah, it's definitely got that kind of vibe, like a Surfcaster. I'm gonna share it with you guys, and then I'll just, for those listening later, I'll disclaim. Here it is. I found one right here, $6.99. Yeah, very, very cool right here. Comes in this evergreen. There's a pink. Oh, you know, I was gonna say it's gross, but I actually like the metallic in it. It's pretty cool. I was gonna say, oh, it looks like, I call it Barbie skin pink. I'm like, ugh. But the black looks good. The pink looks good. The green looks good. I love this kind of like this retro look. This cool. I love that they put the Guild G into the bridge. Looks really cool. $6.99. They don't have them in stock. I can't see from this where they're made. That would tell me, like, you know, if they're Indonesia or China or whatever it is, maybe made in Korea. I like the big, Guild G right there in the back plate. It looks like a roasted maple neck. It's a scarf joint though, right there. I can see the scarf joint, but roasted maple, it looks like. Very cool. Rosewood, block inlays. This looks really cool. C-shaped guitar. This would be a cool one to get on the deep dives. I would love to do this. So let me go back to me and your question. Your question was, Guild Surfcaster Deluxe, have you seen it? I just saw it right now. What are my thoughts? I thought it looked cool. That would definitely be one I'd like to check out. So maybe we can figure out how to get one on the channel. There's none in stock that I just saw, so maybe it hasn't come out yet, or maybe they're just sold out fast. But I would definitely put that on the channel for sure. Stuff like that's always cool. And there's a way to find a way. Like I said, we just did that Squire video. The Squire video actually cracked me up. I want to thank you guys for being the community you are. I actually got roasted for the Squire video, so you know it was pretty harsh and it was kind of funny. The hindsight was funny. So I didn't do it on purpose, obviously. But in the beginning of the Squire video, if you haven't seen the Squire video this week, I did a Squire. And what I did was, just like I've done a bunch of these videos, when I'm interested in a certain guitar or I'm interested in doing a certain type of video, I reach out to my Patreon page and I say, hey, is anyone willing to buy one of these guitars? And I give them a bunch of options. And I say, hey, here's some guitars I'm thinking about. So if a company, let's say I'm kind of burnt out on what companies are sending, or I'm not finding anything that I'm finding interesting, I'll reach out to my patrons and I'll say, hey, here's the deal. So you guys know, here's the deal, how it works. I'll reach out to them and say, if you guys are willing to buy this guitar and have it shipped to me, so they can buy it from Sweetwater or Mom and Pop, whoever their trusted source retailer is, buy it, but have it shipped to me. I'll do a video with it, and then I'll do some stuff to it, kind of like a sharpen my axe. Like in this particular case, the Squire got, I shielded the cavity, I upgraded the tuning keys, the locking keys. Those are out of my pocket for that. And I did a fret, I fretted the fret ends, I set it up, new set of strings, and he's gonna get probably a strap and a bunch of other cool stuff. Like I said, it'll be like a couple $200 worth of stuff. I'll pack it up and I pay to ship it back to him. So he gets it like he just bought it straight from them. And of course I get to run through the guitar, and he's got a professional guitar tech who went through his guitar, and he gets all that stuff. And that's kind of the symbiotic relationship that I can have with that. Why this is funny to me is somebody watched that video, and all they heard at the beginning of the video, I did say at the beginning of the video that I had a patron get the guitar and send it to me. I didn't think about like what anyone would perceive that to be. Later in the video, which is timestamped as always, all my videos are timestamped, I did explain that I am upgrading a few things of the guitar and sending it back to Rob, the patron. So apparently somebody watched my video, did not pay attention or watch to the end, and basically said that I was a horrible person because I convinced some patron to buy me a guitar. And then they went on a tirade out there in the universe, explaining to everybody how horrible I am for having somebody, for me convincing somebody to buy me a guitar. And that's not what happened. What happened was I asked if anyone was interested in buying any of these types of guitars. I would do some cool stuff for it in exchange for them letting me use it in a video. So there was kind of a just dessert in that. Is why I'm sharing that, because it was like funny to watch, because I'm sitting there the whole time. The guys, when people were up in arms about it, I was like, huh, too bad they didn't watch the end. They would have found out that they were incorrect. So there was a little, that was kind of nice, because sometimes when you're being roasted on something, it's really nice when you know secretly, like, oh, those guys didn't pay attention. So, speaking of roasted, boy, talk about a segue. Vintage Amp Guy wants to know, hey, Phil, is a roasted guitar neck really more stable than a regular one? What about a 5-piece neck or one with graphite rods? Are they really worth the extra money? No, I told you I've done as much, experimenting I can with roasted necks. Here is what my takeaway with roasted necks. I personally think roasted necks are the best thing for inexpensive guitars. I think it's a fantastic way that we should be really looking into to make inexpensive guitars. And I don't want to call them inexpensive, because I always feel like that's kind of somehow degrading or shaming or whatever you want to call it. I'm really slamming some kind of guitar on a person who's buying that guitar, and that's not what I want to say. What I want to say was, I have a friend who manages an entire guitar factory, and he said something that was great to me years ago. He said he calls guitars slow or fast. So guitars are either made slow, like by hand, or in a small shop, or like a custom shop, or maybe even a factory that makes less guitars, right? So a mid-sized factory. Or fast, what we experience when we see like a Cortec guitar. They're making millions of guitars and they're doing it as a fast process. So when he says, he would always say, like, I've told this before, he corrected me once when I was talking and I said, oh, it's a cheap guitar. And he goes, it's fast. It's just made fast. And he goes, when they make a guitar fast, he was saying, as someone who actually runs the entire guitar factory, he was saying it like this. This was his logic, which I thought was ingenious. He was like, look, I need a guitar. How long does it take me to build? He's like, okay, I need, it's an hour to cut out the body. It's an hour to cut, I'm just giving you some numbers. He's like, an hour to cut out the neck. Somebody's got to sand the neck. That takes 30 minutes, right? And he was just going through the process. And he's like, let's say, argumentatively speaking, you want to make this guitar for a certain price. You want to make it for, $300 in costs. This is the time you have, much less the parts and the woods and the experiences, the components, the time, it has to be done in a certain amount of time, because that's the expense of the labor. And so he referred to those guitars as fast. That he's like, look, they're not going to take the extra 20 minutes on the frets, because they can't. The guitar has to get out the door for $400 or $300. And so I really like that. Watching that in factories now, and I can see it when I go to factories. Ever since he explained it to me, when I go to factories after, I'd see exactly what he said. I'd watch them and I go, yeah, some factories are like humming, man. They're just trying to get the guitars out the door. You can see it. And some guitar companies, they're literally spending the time with the guitars, and the price points usually reflect that. And what's great about this is roasted necks to me are a great way to make fast guitars, because one of the problems when you cut a neck and then you fret it, and then you shape it, and then you stick it on a guitar, and then you throw it in bubble wrap in a box, is that wood it's barely been in that shape for, like I said, that tree doesn't even know it's dead yet. It's the shape of a guitar and on its way somewhere. So to me, roasting the neck is a great way to make sure that they can extrude all that moisture out of there, and they can get those sugars inside the wood to harden and stuff. And I think that's a great idea. I do personally. Now, on expensive guitars, I think it's great too. I mean, it looks cool. There's different kinds of roasting processes, as I've seen, and some are more expensive and more, I don't know if they're more difficult. Just some are more expensive than others in the way they do them, but I like that. Now, that being said, I love the idea of doing 3 and 5-piece necks. I think that's fantastic. One of the things that we were, with the Badlands guitars, one of the things that's really important is if you notice that guitar was a 3-piece neck. And the reason being is, because I do videos where, like I said, I'm the dude with a nylon sock on his hand going, hey, frets are sharp. So you can't have, I can't be involved with the company even in a small part, and then them having issues with the frets. So like here, let me show you. I'm sure I have some I say that and then I don't. I do. Let me show you guys something, and this will tie into the multi-piece neck and the roasted neck. Maybe I don't. Okay, here's one. So let me. So I'm going to show you. This is a neck that they were just posting on Instagram. Let me go here. For you guys watching, this is a neck. You can see they haven't finished buffing that. You can see the sanding haze on the inlay. If you notice the way we requested the guitars be done, they are not cutting the fret ends all the way to the end. So what's happening is we're taking the blade or the tang of the fret and we're having them cut that off short, and then it runs the entire fret to the length. And that's because if this neck was to shrink a little bit, that fret blade does not stick out on the side, because obviously it's got about an eighth of an inch between the end of the fretboard and the cut in. Now, that's not entirely enough, because what's going to be great is, let me see if I go here. Yeah, let me go here. You can't see it, but this is 3 pieces. Right here, you can kind of tell if you're looking at my cursor, you can see the centerpiece is a little lighter. So this is 3 pieces of quarter-sawn maple in the neck. And by doing that, by doing 3 different pieces, one piece of wood, let me go back to one piece of wood can shrink. Remember, wood's a sponge, so it can shrink as it dries out. But 3 different pieces, especially if the centerpiece is flipped a different direction, the other 2, which is what it is, they most likely are going to shrink at different rates because they are different, right? And so what happens is one side could shrink a little bit, maybe now the other side doesn't as much, and maybe the middle doesn't shrink at all, or maybe the middle shrinks a little bit and the sides don't as much. Either way, it's not likely the neck's going to shrink very much because of that, because there's 3 variables instead of the 1 variable. And then add in the fact that we didn't let the fret tangs go to the end of the fretboard for them to sprout out. It is very unlikely, even in the future, that you will come across the guitar doing a fret sprout. The important part of me explaining this is, we didn't do this. This isn't like we invented this. This is literally how guitars are done. This is a way you can do guitars. I've done videos where eArt Guitars does it this way. They just use, what they do to save money is, instead of having the CNC machine cut the channel for the fret, and like we did shallow of the fretboard edges, they just go right across, and then they fill it in with the pieces of plastic or maple, which is just as effective. You know what I mean? I mean, it's, if it saves them a few seconds and they can make a guitar for $300, good on them. But basically, this is the system that works the best. So to answer Vintage Amp Guy's question is, does a roasted maple neck work better than a multi-piece neck? In my opinion, no. I like multi-piece necks. I find that sometimes it's just guitar players don't like the way they look. They look very modern looking, so I can imagine why you wouldn't want them on a certain guitar. And then also graphite rods obviously they're different. Graphite rods are different. They're a great idea too. If you put 2 graphite rods in there in the guitar neck, that's going to help the neck stay straight, and even can help prevent it from twisting. However, those rods aren't going to affect it from shrinking, right? As it loses a little bit more moisture. So those are a safe. So that's why I'm saying they're not the same. So the technique of what roasting is trying to do, and the technique of using a graphite rod is similar in concept to what they're trying to achieve in certain things, but to me, they're different. So I mean, I would rather, I would rather have the graphite rods than the roasting in my experience. But to me, like a multi-ply roasted neck with graphite rods would be a pretty bulletproof neck. The downfall though of roasting is that the more pieces of wood you add to the product that you're roasting, the more variance in the colors not matching. So that's the downfall of doing a 3-piece or 5-piece neck. If you're doing maple, so in other words, like a 3-piece neck, like what we did in quarter-sawn 3-piece neck, if we roasted it as well, the problem is that it's going to happen. The variables of each piece of that maple being a slightly different color than the other, you're going to get somebody going, hey, why is the center light and the side, or worse, one side's dark, one side's light, the middle's light, it's just going to look odd. So it's just an aesthetic thing. But from a technical building platform and idea, I mean, like a multi-piece roasted neck with maple with carbon fiber rods, that's a neck that's just bulletproof, in my opinion. So that's that. So that's the answer to your question. The answer to your question is not, one is not necessarily better than the others. There's just different reasons why you want to use certain ones, and effective pricing. Cutting the pieces again. I don't see it as a big deal to cut multiple piece necks as an expense wise. Obviously, like I said, we didn't, it doesn't cost us any more. Well, let me put it this way. And again, so this is just give you some factual information on the Badland neck. And again, because this is something we're manufacturing, so I can tell you what it costs and doesn't cost. The only thing that would increase the cost of that neck is if we made the entire neck out of one piece of wood. That would increase the cost, because it's a lot harder to find a piece of maple that's, because remember, we have an angled headstock. So it's not like a Fender headstock where it's straight. It's kind of back 11-degree angle that's on the headstock. So you got to understand, to get the angle, the CNC machine would have to cut it from both sides basically. But more importantly, you have to start with a really thick block, because you have to start from where the lowest point of that angled headstock is to the top of that fretboard. So now you're talking about a pretty thick block of maple. So that would be more expensive if we did it out of one piece. So it's less expensive if we scarf joint the neck, which we didn't. It's less expensive if we do a multiply, which is what we did. And I'm trying to think of anything else. That would be pretty much it. So the only thing that's more expensive if we do one piece. But in my opinion, one piece could be better, but I think personally the multiply neck is stronger and it costs less. So it's like, to me, it's like win-win, right? If it's the difference between a guitar being $2,500 to you guys versus $2,650, and then we have just a slightly one-piece neck for aesthetics, and that's what it would be for me as an aesthetic thing, because maybe you think that looks nicer. I don't know if it's worth it. So there you go. That's my thoughts on those necks. Okay. The next question we got from Super Lead 100. Hey, Phil. Saw a video with Aaron from Warmoth. He was discussing how he met you at the NAMM. So this must be an old video, I would assume, unless he's talking about it again. I met him at the 2020 NAMM right before COVID. A few years ago. Yep. Oh, yeah, that's when it was, 2020, that January NAMM. And you guys talked about collaborating on a project. Is that project still alive? I don't believe it's still alive. And when I say I don't believe it's still alive, I mean, he was very nice. So how I met Aaron was I think I stopped him. He might have stopped me. I don't remember, but we were at the NAMM show. I just remember as soon as I started talking to him, within seconds, I was pitching him an idea for a video. My idea was I would like to dream up a guitar from Warmoth. Like, I'll pick the neck, I'll pick the body, and all the parts, and then send me everything to build a guitar, kind of like a kit guitar, right? But I was going to build 2 identical guitars, and we would give one away to a viewer. And I think it was, just to give you a reference, I think it was for the 300,000 subscribers. I think I was like, yeah, that'd be like cool. Maybe it was 250,000 subs. I think it was 250,000 subs, like 250,000. I was like, this will be great. It'll be like 250,000 subs, and we'll give away a guitar. And I was going to make 2, and I was going to, do everything, like the headstock, name the headstock and serial number them 1 and 2, and then the viewer would get 1 and I would get 2. And the main reason I did it was kind of weird. The idea was, I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if you won this guitar that I put together and built, and it was really, really good. But also, wouldn't it be cool if, like, we're twinsies, literally we have the same guitar, and you can go, hey, like, I have one, Phil has one, and it's kind of cool. And that was my idea, and he loved it. He was like, we got to do that. And we started talking back and forth in emails, and I don't want to tell you what guitars we were picking and why we were picking them, but I even had a great concept of why it had to be this type of guitar and everything. And then COVID happened, and I was flying out, so I was paying out of my own pocket. I was going to fly up there. I think they're in Montana. I think I know it's up north. And I was going to fly there. I was going to do a video at the factory, me picking out the tops, the woods, the whole 9 yards, like the whole experience. And I thought this was really cool. And then COVID happened. And in fact, I lucked out, because it literally, the lockdowns, it was March. The lockdown happened right when I was booking the flight to Warmoth. And then he was even saying, like, I don't know if it's a good idea to book a flight. And I'm like, I don't think so either. And so, and then shortly after that, we discussed, after COVID, maybe I feel like it was months, it could have been a year later. You know, he's like, we're slammed with work. We don't even, we can't even meet the orders that we're getting now. So of course, remember during COVID, you guys were buying so many guitars. Well, us guys, we were all buying so many guitars that a lot of companies were like, it doesn't even make sense to advertise guitars. And so that's what happened with them. So, that's what happened with that. So is the project still alive? As far as I know, it was put on the back burner, and it's on the back burner until Warmoth decides it's not on the back burner again. So I'll have to, oh yeah. So Warmoth is in Seattle. Thank you, Thomas. So that's what happened with that. If we did revisit it, I don't know if I'll do the 2 guitars thing. Maybe it would just be I build a guitar and then we ship it to a viewer. I don't know. Because you got to understand, to you guys, it's probably like, oh, well, Phil gets a guitar out of the deal, which is true. But I mean, it's also twice the work, twice the editing, twice the, like, the more stuff you add into your video, the more work. And I don't know how to ever explain it sometimes, but I always say, like, you understand, it's a trading thing. I'm trading I'm trading my skill set for something, like, just like if you guys have a trade, if you're a plumber and you trade, like I'll fix your toilets, and then your other friends like a mechanic, and you fix my car. That's how a lot of videos work nowadays. It's not like they just give you stuff. I'm not talking about Warmoth. Just think a lot of times you guys are like, why? Of course you would do it for a free guitar. I'm like, well, you say that, but I mean, it's true. But also the sad thing is it's trade. It's like I got to do a couple days worth of work for this, and sometimes when you add up the numbers, you're like, I don't know if that makes sense for me, because I can do something else with that time. So. But I would love to do it, but I don't know if I do the 2 guitars. I don't know. It would depend. I would like to, again, you guys tell me if that's just really cool. I didn't know if that was cool. But that was my idea, to do the 2. Okay. I don't understand the question. Okay. So he says, do it at 400,000 subs. That would be like in 3 years. Let's do that. The channel gets, the way I get subs, I don't get, you could, yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, perfect. Let's do it. We'll do it in 2 years. Okay, let's go to, Sean says, I love factory tours ever since reading Rainbow as a child. Yeah, I love factory tours. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I think of Perfect Vacations. That's what they are. It's me going to a factory. Vim69 says, hey, Phil, did you see the new EHX JHS? That's a lot of letters, man. EHX JHS. Lizard Queen pedal launch. What are your thoughts on octave fuzzes? Thanks for all you do. I did see the pedal launch. I believe Nathan sent it to me in a text, because I think it bared relevance to some conversation we're having. All I didn't know is, oh, okay, so here it is. I'm sharing with you guys. What I didn't know was only $99. That's pretty kick-ass. Like, I was thinking, like, oh, it's $200 pedal. Like I said, I always feel like everything's like a new $200 pedal. It's pretty cool. I love octave pedals. I love fuzz pedals. I love fuzz octave pedals. I mean, those are just 2 pedals I love combined. So I love the idea of this. Is it octave up or octave down? I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I am not in the pedal circles. I told you guys for years and years and years, I go, I'm trying to do 1 pedal a month. That's 12 pedals a year. There are channels that do a pedal every day. That's 30 pedals a month, much like 300 and something pedals a year. And I try to do 12 a year. And what I found is it's almost impossible. I'm just not a pedal channel, so they don't think of me. The interesting thing about this is it's a kind of a weird double-edged sword that I have to deal with. Pedal companies don't really reach out to me, which is fine. But the irony is, and when I say it's fine, it's because when I do pedal videos, I take a drop in viewership. I don't get as many views as if I do a guitar video. Guitar videos are the highest performing for me, no matter what the guitar video is. So if it's a deep dive, if it's a informational thing, if it's a repair video, if it's just in it, whatever, as long as it's guitar related, it seems I get more viewership out of it. And since, like I said, not everything's about viewership to me. So it's like, I just want to do stuff that's interesting to me as well. But the pedal videos don't do as well. But the irony is that even what I call not doing well, they do pretty well for pedal videos. I mean, if you look at 10 pedal videos at any given time, I'll be in the top 2 or 3 performing for the view counts. I only say that because it's kind of a weird thing. Like I said, that I don't get the numbers I normally get with guitars, but I do well. I do play in the level of what other pedal channels get and stuff, or better, and still just not a lot of interest. There's not a lot of interest to send pedals out. And it's tough for me because, like I said, I don't just take a product just because, you know, somebody offers it. I have to want it and stuff. So there you go. That's my answer. So my answer to your question is no. So because of that, I don't even really pay attention to pedals anymore. To give you an idea how sometimes backwards this is getting with me with pedals is, I just found a pedal the other day and I was super excited about it. And I found out it came out 4 years ago. I thought it just came out. I was like, oh, this is a great idea for a pedal. And I literally was on it. I was looking at it. I was getting ready to buy it. And then I decided to watch a video and I pulled up out of the videos and all the videos are 4 years old. I was like, wow, I didn't even see this thing come and go. So on that, Vimps, I love the idea of the pedal. I love the $99. But you know, there's no, if, you know, there's, I don't know anything about it. Like I said, I don't have high hopes for pedal videos being in the future of the channel for very much longer, maybe 2 or 3 a year tops. Okay. And that's mostly and because I do so few pedal videos, I'm pretty much only supporting the smallest pedal builders at this point, because the big pedal builders have a budget to get on every channel. So I'm trying to just kind of just use the muscle of whatever this channel has to help a smaller builder if I can. Clan of House Cats says, got another white Japan Jackson DK2M. Love that guitar. My version of the Badlands Quality Nostalgia guitar when I was 13. They don't make them like this. They used to. Yeah, well, that's good and bad. I love the Jackson DK made in Japan guitars. The one thing that's funny is the way you said that's perfectly. They don't make them like this. That's true. They don't make them like that anymore, and it's good and bad. The one thing about Jackson Dinkies, the old Japanese ones, is they're fantastic guitars, but they are the most inconsistent in how the necks feel. Some necks are thin, some necks are thick. They're all over the place. It's because a lot of times when guitars are built in Japan, especially from those eras, which is the eras is not even, we're not talking about the 80s. Most of that Jackson DK2, like your made in Japan Jacksons, most of them were made when Fender got a hold of them. That's when they really started pumping on the volume, and that was in the 2000s. The way the Jackson manufacturers did it is they usually hand carved out the necks. They would like use the machines to kind of generically carve out the block of the neck, and then they just hand carve it with their hand. So a lot of those necks are all kinds of different shapes and thicknesses. I'm sorry, I'm pouring water. Because different luthiers, like luthiers work on them, you know, craftsmen. So that's what's cool about the guitars, but that's also what sucks. Like I'll have somebody, I have a Jackson DK Dinky, and it's great. And then I'll pick up another one. I go, oh yeah, this neck's too thin, or this neck's too thick. They're, like I said, they're pretty variable, but very, very cool, and definitely cool for the money for sure. Great stuff. All right. Litface says, what pickup should I put in a mini Samick bass? No, don't mess with it. I like vintage, but worry about being too dark with short scale. DiMarzio P60s or Relentless. Well, I really like the Relentless in the short scale bass, but the question is, do you not like that pickup in that bass? Sometimes, you know, like I said, our instinct is like, it's an inexpensive bass and it's probably got an inexpensive pickup. But those pickups, which are probably ceramic, probably sound pretty good. But if they're, I'm trying to think. I'm actually mentally going on like what they probably used. And so I'm thinking about if you don't like them, and you're saying it's too dark with the short scale. So what I would do is I would go DiMarzio 60s P bass pickups, if that's between that and the Relentless. I like the Relentless, don't get me wrong. I really like it. But the 60s bass pickups, they're going to be a lot brighter, and they'll help with whatever situation you're having with that bass. That's my suggestion. And so, they'll add the top end clarity to that bass. Yeah, I'm thinking now, because those pickups in that bass probably are dark. If they got big ceramic magnets on them, they're probably dark sounding. I actually back up. See, what sucks about questions like this is I don't have all the information. They could be. I like what I'm going to stick with my answer, even though technically. Now, so you guys know, see, this is where it gets tricky for me. When a ceramic, you got to understand, a ceramic guitar pickup is going to be bright on average. Okay. There's so many variables that to say these blanket statements, you could argue them to death, but I'm just giving you some general guidelines. So like I said, think about it like magnets like this. An Alnico 2 is going to be, in my opinion, darker sounding than 4. And 5 is going to be, brighter. And then, 6, 7, 8. But usually you just see mostly you're going to see Alnico 2, 4, 5, and 8. Those are the most popular ones that I see the most. And so as they go up, they're going to get brighter sounding. The magnets will make the pickup be brighter. Okay. And ceramic think of it the same way. It works the same way because there's numbers in ceramic too. And the same thing, the higher they get, the brighter they get. And ceramic by nature pickups, our ceramic magnets in pickups are going to be brighter than Alnico ones. So again, you're getting brighter and brighter. So that's why when you think of like a DiMarzio Super Distortion, it's a bright sounding pickup. An X2N is really bright, right? So I mean, like I said, so sometimes that's how it goes, right? With basses, there's a little bit more going on in there, and sometimes those same things that could cause that because of the strings and the frequencies, things can happen to make it seem different. And that's what I think is happening with him. So reason why I say this, I don't want you to think because I said it's ceramic, I'm saying it's dark. Ceramic in a guitar would be bright, but in the bass, I think it's what's causing his problem. Is because to me, it's probably giving him very scooped out, kind of no mids, no fullness, just bright and low, and that's it. That's my guess. So I would go with a vintage style pickup on that bass and see where that takes you. That's a suggestion. Okay. All right. I never know how to say this name. I always give it I'm going to call you Roast. Anyways, he says, "Hey Phil, I want to buy a Fender Strat, but I don't want to go over $1,000. Okay, that's great. There's so many options. This is great. So my option is Players, but I don't read good reviews about it. What is your opinion? Also, why Gibson LP prices skyrocketed? Look, Gibson prices skyrocketed because inflation, prices skyrocket on guitars, and then of course, Gibson's, they're a big brand, so they're going to go up in price. So that's why they skyrocketed. It's not necessarily to say Gibson skyrocketed. Everybody skyrocketed, but maybe you noticed it more with Gibsons because they were already kind of more expensive. That being said, with the Player Strat, look, I've reviewed a lot of the Player Strats. I got a lot of good and bad things to say about the Player Strats. You can actually find me almost contradicting myself in the podcasts over the years with Player Strats. They're great. They're better than American ones. They need work. Both those statements are accurate. If that's what the whole point of like how I approach the deep dives, and that's why I have the tech tips, is that it's like, here's what to expect, right? To me, if you buy a made in Mexico Fender Player Strat, I just want to make sure we're talking about the same guitar. Yep. If you buy a Player Strat, or actually at this point, any Fender, if you buy a Fender, okay, just be prepared to have a tech or you do some work until that changes. A couple years ago, it was so simple. I would tell you guys to, I would buy Fender through and through. Right now, there's issues. So, but if you notice when I address those issues in videos, people have such a weird reaction to those videos. Some people are like, oh, that's unacceptable. And some people are like, I just fix it. Look, I don't think it's acceptable, but I think it's the environment. If you want it, this is what it is, and this is how you fix it. So in your case, don't worry about the bad reviews. The bad reviews, if they're bad reviews, they're going to be very unique, that a review of the guitar is so bad that it was unplayable or unfixable. Just, like I said, we know what the issues are. The necks are shrinking on their guitars and their frets are sprouting more and more. This is happening. there's a few finish flaws here and there, or there's a few, things that are not done correctly, like adjustments made because the worker probably rushed it through. A lot of that was COVID. A lot of that was management. A lot of that, and like I said, and I pick on Fender only because they're kind of the biggest company. So like I said, they're the ones easiest to go after on these kind of statements. But a lot of companies are guilty of it. I told you, I bought a $4,000 PRS, most expensive guitar ever, and the nut was not sent. It was not glued center. It was off to the side, right? And in the middle of COVID. It's just like I said. So it's everybody has had issues. But in your case, I don't think you should shake your confidence. The only thing you should shake your confidence, if you're not willing to deal with those potential issues, then maybe look elsewhere. But if you understand the issues that you're going to possibly deal with, you know what to do with them, you just move forward. Aerosphere Audio says, Phil, getting on stage now for the Tone Jar. Hey, have a great show, right? That's awesome. Doublespeak says, morning, Phil. Will Badlands ever ship outside the U.S.? I am so keen, but in Australia. I don't handle that. So I don't know. I just know. So obviously we have these Zoom calls and we have WhatsApp and we're constantly back and forth talking about all this stuff. There's obviously we want to ship outside the United States. Look, we're not dumb. We're recreating an 80s era guitar line. And we know we have a big market if we go to Japan. It's a no-brainer. And especially with the next model, the next run is, there's, like I said, as we get closer, I can say certain things, or I will say certain things. The next model looks like we're going to do a 100-piece run instead of a 50 run. Now, that doesn't mean we will make all 100. We might sell 5, like we said the last time. We were prepared to deal with what we have to deal with, right? Whatever the interest is. We're guessing. We're like, this is what we think other people like us would want, and let's go with it. And if that's 5 other people, then that's what it is. If it's 100, it's 100. The only thing we can tell you is if it's 105, it's 100, because that's how many, like I said, we have to predict how fast we can turn these. And so we believe the next run, we can make 100 in the same time turn as the 50 we did on the first run. And so that's what we're anticipating. Because again, it's how long to make the guitars and what's involved with the guitars. The interesting thing about the next run of guitars is what we're doing hasn't been done in a while, but more importantly, what we're doing on the next guitar has never been done. And I think I told you guys that there's the company that manufactures a certain thing for us. When they noticed the guitar company bought it, they came out and helped us figure this out. So we know that if we want to sell more guitars, we know we have to ship overseas. We understand that. We're working on it. You got to understand. You got to understand, we're a small company. We're just doing this to be like the small runs, something cool, something unique, something fun. Fun being the operative thing right here, right? If we're not having fun, there's just no other logic to do this. And so I'm going to go back to this generic, boring answer of, we're working on that. Is there any light at the end of that tunnel? Not that I'm seeing right now, but we're working on it. It's just a logistics thing. It's how do you ship them? How do you deal with that? How do you deal with customs? How do you deal with all this stuff? We're not a 10-year guitar company in that area, so we don't know. We don't want problems. In other words, what I'm trying to say. But that all being said is, I can tell you honestly, I can't say hundreds of hours. I just don't know if that's the right answer, but I can tell you an insane amount of hours have been spent working on the logistics of getting shipped overseas. And they're working on it. David says, so we're back to Fender. David says, I think it's great that you criticize Fender. It's ridiculous that they blacklist this channel. I don't think I'm blacklisted. I just think I'm just not on their radar. Blacklisted is different. I've been blacklisted by a company. To give you a reference of what blacklisted means is, to me, the blacklisted is not only do they not send stuff, which is fine. That's their prerogative. Maybe they don't like my channel. They can have their prerogative. But I've had companies like flat out tell other companies they work with, like, not to work with me. So you're like, okay, they didn't like the review. But with Fender, there is a tricky thing that you have to deal with. And here's the tricky thing. And even I, have trouble with it. How do you get a company to want to essentially pay you to say something that is probably might be, not probably, but might not be flattering about your product. I mean, most companies understand the concept of, okay, we send a product, we pay you, or both, or whatever the deal is with these, whatever. They expect positive, hey, it was great. And I am positive, but I always temper it with like, here's some good things, here's some bad things, and here's the, like I said, here's a realistic look at this guitar. I think the average guitar player out there will kind of, understand. And I get why sometimes they don't value that. The only thing I don't believe, so is I don't subscribe to the thought that everybody says like, oh, when any channel says, and remember, a lot of these channels are my friends now. When any channel says like, I say what I want and the company doesn't care. In my experiences, it's not the companies lash out at you or throw a fit. They just never take your emails or calls again. And so when somebody says I say whatever I want and the company doesn't care, I'm like, yeah, then you haven't said the right thing, because if you critique a certain thing, the companies do kind of not interact with you. But the good news is, like I said, we have Fenders on the channel. We get everything on the channel. That's like I said, we will continue to put whatever you guys are interested on the channel, because that's the important part to me. I've already warned you guys and told you guys, I can tell you if it's all about just making money on videos, I will just do all Amazon-based Chinese product. It is the most lucrative product out there. And when I say that, please understand, it's not just their fault. It's your fault too. If you review a guitar, especially Chinese-made guitars that are predominantly sold on Amazon, and there's so many of those brands, reviewing those guitars, two things definitely happen. They pay the absolute most. Absolutely. No question. They pay the most to get on the channels. But you watch them the most. So it's like, it is the cake and eat it too on every level. I tell you, the people who get screwed, here's the get screwed thing. I'll go on a tangent for a second. The guys who get screwed are the small builders. That's who get screwed. Look, if I do Fender, if I do Squier, if I do Epiphone, I do Gibson, there's views. So they don't have to pay to sponsor a video, because they don't have to. It's going to get enough views and you guys will watch it. And then literally, because you guys watch it, there's revenue from YouTube. And remember, it's a numbers game. The more the watches I get, the more links might get clicked, and maybe a couple of cents comes in sideways. Remember, it's a pennies game. I get, hundreds of pennies here, 1,000 pennies there, 100 pennies here. I mean, it adds up. So there's incentive to make that video. Anything, like I said, anything made in China that's heavily promoted on Amazon, they have the biggest budgets. I think I told this story once before, but it's my favorite story. It's kind of so crazy. I had a company reach out and ask me to do a video, and they paid me. And then I got busy and didn't make the video because I was, working on other stuff. And another company, another marketing company for that company reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to do a video about this product? And I said, actually, I'm sorry. I'm actually working on the video right now, and I'll have it done. And he goes, did you finish it? And I said, no. And he goes, I'll pay you the same amount to make that video. And I go, no, they already paid me to do the video. He goes, yeah, but I'll pay you too, because the marketing companies, how they work is they pay you, and then they turn in what they did to the companies, these companies with deep pockets, and then they get paid. They get paid for paying me. Does that make sense? So like if you to make life easy, if I agree to do it for $100, they're going to charge that company 150 and they get 50. So this one company, this brand, two marketing companies paid me, they double paid me. And I was actually like, I don't understand what's going on here. And it was really crazy because, like I said, they just had such a budget that they just wanted as many videos as they could get. So it gets a little crazy with those companies. The only thing that's tough to do, which is why it's the hardest thing and why I try to focus on it as much as I can, is small builders. Because you guys won't watch those videos. You don't know that brand. You're not really interested, which I understand as a whole. And when I say you guys, I don't mean you specifically. You're kind of the core community of my channel, but I'm talking about like the outreach. And they almost have no budget to give you. So you're almost working with nothing. And almost all the small builders, how we do it is we ask them to donate to charities. So we give them small builders, we give them a much lower fee, and we comp the work. My joke is I don't work for free unless you're a 501c. If you're not from the US, you probably don't understand what that means. A 501c is a legitimate charity in the United States. It means they're actually set up with the government as a legitimate charity. And so what happens is like, for instance, I just did one today with a guitar builder. He wants me to do a video. I told him, what it's going to take to do the video, which is he has to donate a certain amount of money to a charity. I usually, I have a list of charities I want to deal with, and I'll even let them make payments to the charity. They just have to screenshot me that they did it. And we do it that way. So like I said, I find all the ways I can, whether that's through the Patreon, through, working with those guys, through the big brands, through the Amazon guys, whatever works. I kind of like salt and pepper it through the channel, and that's why you see a variety of that stuff. But to be honest with you, if I wanted to make all the money, I know exactly where to stay. Just keep making those anything that's sold on Amazon, just make those videos. And I'm sure the party would run out on me, so to speak, if I did that. But I mean, the payouts would be so astronomically huge comparatively wise. It's a 10 times multiplier. They'll pay me 10 times as much as anybody else that's mid-price. So that's how that works. I don't even know why we're talking about this now. So, okay. Oh, I think we're talking about because Fender being blacklisted by companies like Fender and stuff. Like I said, I don't think I'm blacklisted. I just think believe it or not, I think my channel is too small enough for them to care about. They just, and I've always said this before, most companies, when you see them working with channels, including mine, especially mine, they only usually want to focus on what they're interested in promoting. So it's not like it does me any good. So like you guys like, hey, it'd be really cool if you check out the new Les Paul Studio. If Gibson was to work with me, which they don't, they would probably want me to promote or talk about whatever thing they're really hyper on, focused on selling. So it wouldn't do us any good as a channel. So like I said, we try to put those videos in because we use those revenue to keep the other videos going. I try to focus on doing 52 deep dive videos a year is my goal. Okay. What is desert fisherman? Desert fisherman doesn't catch any fish, I'm sure, in the desert. I'm just kidding. We got some lakes here. It says, fellow desert rat here. Should I do anything for humidity for solid body guitars like I do for my acoustic? I don't. That doesn't mean that you're safe if you don't. I'm just telling you, I don't humidify my solid body guitars. So I just pay attention to them. You'll see the signs. The frets on electric guitars, the big deals are, of course, fret sprout because the neck shrank or fretboards cracking. Both usually will tell you ahead of time that they're happening. They don't just randomly happen in overnight. Acoustic can dry out very quickly and crack, and that could be problematic. It's not going to, again, that doesn't happen in hours or days, but it will happen in weeks where, electric guitar, it takes a while for that to happen. So it's up to you. I don't personally do it. Big Red says, hey, Phil, why does deleting a tone knob make Kiesel non-returnable? It's a great question. So I'll give you the answer. I don't know. There are a couple things that Kiesel does that I don't quite understand. I will tell you this. It was COVID. Remember, I never worked with Kiesel until I met Jeff Kiesel and Brandon, which Brandon is who I deal with at Kiesel. Sorry, get back to my screen. I met them in January 2020 NAMM, which obviously is COVID, right? So COVID happens like right after that NAMM. So I've never had an opportunity to interact with them in a personal way other than that one experience. I would love to go down to Kiesel and do a video of their factory. Now they have videos of their factories, but I would like to go there and actually do this, exactly what you're asking. Why is this? Maybe have them explain it. I know that, again, what I can tell you from doing the Badlands is such a small run, but again, the experiences are somewhat the same. I can tell you that we have the idea of what we have ideas. We'll go, hey, let's do this. And then the shop's like, it's going to cost money. It's going to take more time. So I think personally, if you do a lot of things with the Kiesels, I find they're non-returnable. I can tell you this, almost every Kiesel I've personally done with them, whether they were working with me or I did it on my independently, was considered non-returnable because I picked something at some point through their process. So I'm not sure why those things do that. the answer to another question you didn't ask is, why is it hard to delete? Why do they charge? Like sometimes they'll charge to not do something. And that's because they have to reprogram the machine. So, I mean, obviously that, anything that takes time, they're going to charge you money for. You got to understand, because that's time adds up. Everybody always goes, it's only 5 minutes. I'm like, yeah, everybody who works knows what that means. It's only 5 minutes of your time. Well, but it's only 5 minutes times 100, right? 100 times. So you can see this stuff adds up a long time. I don't know what makes it non-returnable though. So that I don't know. I'd love to find out. Maybe I'll find out. Like I said, we'll do a factory tour or a factory video. I'd love to do that. Grumpy My Guitar says, were there any new releases from NAMM that especially caught your eye and tempted you to buy? Nothing really excited me from the NAMM show this year. And the same thing for like the last couple of years. Like I said, the new Swirl Pio was cool, but it was 11 grand. That's not like, that's not like a real guitar that I can, oh, wow. I was paying attention. ESP Ltd had some cool runs. Chapman came out with some new guitars. Ola Solar came out with some new cool guitars that I saw. I saw some pedals. I saw stuff. But there was nothing specifically that's like, I'm definitely getting that or that's on my radar. Godin came out with some cool stuff, like a new version, I guess, of the like multi-act kind of guitars. But again, I didn't see price points. I think that's what was missing. Is one downfall of the NAMM this year for me was there was a bunch of channels doing coverage, but you need really overlapping coverage. You need a lot of information because to me, I would be like, oh, there's a new guitar. That looks cool. How much is it? I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it quickly. And then I'm like, well, I'm not going to look all day for this. And it's probably $1,500 and I'm not going to pay that if it's that or whatever. So I had a lot of those experiences this year where it was like, I had a lot of experiences where I was like watching, stuff and I was just not engaging. I'm really trying right now too, to think of anything that I was like, yes, that's cool. Like a new amp, new anything. Nothing. And, I personally don't even understand the NAMM anymore. Like I told you guys, I'm sorry. I don't want to be a yuck the yum, so to speak. But, as someone who's been in NAMM so many times and has loved it, I just don't know what's left of it there to go. I mean, there's not as many vendors there. And like I said, I didn't enjoy going to NAMM as a YouTuber. I enjoyed it as a dealer. I enjoyed it as a gear enthusiast. That's really, like I said, if the NAMM going there and just seeing gear and being exposed to it, and of course seeing it 5 seconds before somebody else is super exciting on top of that. But as a content creator, there just was never anything there. I spent more time fighting the companies, and I mean, when I mean literally fighting. Like they'd get, I don't want their market copy. In other words, I don't want them to be like, we innovated this. We got red. Like, what? And they're like, yeah, no one ever put red on a guitar before, and we did it. Now it's red, and you're like, okay. It was hard not to be like they want to turn everybody into a pitch man. And they were never versed. So it's just never really anything there for me to really do. And I'd always try to find something to do every year. And COVID really kind of helped me understand, like, yeah, like I said, I like the concept and I'm sure there's a ton of reasons why it should still exist, but it just doesn't work for me anymore as a channel or as a gear enthusiast. Brian says, any thoughts on Korea versus Indonesia PRS SEs? I mean, no real thoughts. To me, it's not Korea, Indonesia. Okay. Let's start there. To me, it's world manufacturing versus Quartec. Okay. You could argue, and this is where it gets a little tricky for me. Okay. I'm not a political person. This is a guitar channel. And so I'm going to keep it that way. But I'm not also naive that there is a political part of the China-made guitars. You can do videos of guitars made in Vietnam. You can make guitars in India. You can make talk about guitars made in Indonesia, and you name it. But China, every time China comes up, it becomes a hot button for a lot of people. And I understand that. When I say understand that, I mean I understand that it's a hot button for everybody. Okay. But I want to be very clear that I try to keep the channel most focused on guitar content, but also more importantly, information that helps you as a consumer understand what you're buying. If you have an ethical reason why not to buy stuff from something, a political reason, that's great. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying that's not part of the channel's agenda. So to me, it's very important that sometimes, especially if you're new, because we get a lot of new players, because this is an information channel and you learn a lot from the things we experience here. They hear us say like, oh, Indonesia is better than China, and Korea is better than Indonesia, right? And Japan's better than Korea, and there's this logic to that. And keep in mind, it's a slang term for the most part. You have to understand that really what we're referring to is the factories, the skilled factories, the type of factories, how long they've been doing it, the cost in which they will do it for. These are very, very important. So to me, personally, Cortec and World. So World Manufacturing in Korea and Cortec, it was now in Indonesia. By the way, was originally in Korea. They're a Korean-based company, and they were making guitars in Korea, but they moved to Indonesia. And it's a sad reason why, because it's very political. They were having issues with employees. You can Google that. Again, if that upsets you, then don't buy from Cortec. I totally understand. But again, we're just going to talk about the manufacturing, okay? So to me, if you're asking me what's my thoughts on Korea versus Indonesian-made PRSs, you gotta understand. I understand what you're saying. I just want you to understand what I'm saying. I'm talking about Cortec versus World. I believe Cortec has and is surpassing World in the technology aspect. I believe Cortec is passing the actual US factories as a technology aspect. I think my impressions is PRS Guitars has probably learned more from Cortec than Cortec has learned from PRS in manufacturing guitars. That's what I really believe. That probably would make Paul Reed's head explode. I don't mean to do that, but I mean, it's true. Or maybe I don't know, maybe he agrees. I don't know. But seriously, like when I see how Cortec manufactures guitars and how they are able to do quality and the volume they're doing, and keep in mind, volume's a game. We obviously understand labor costs. We understand different regions of the world have different costs in labor, and there's all kinds of things we can talk about, but you understand, just making more of something exponentially drops that price. Cortec has done a lot to make effectively really good guitars, effectively very inexpensive for what you're getting. So I think they're really, really good. And one thing I really like, and if you watch my interview with Jack Higginbotham, the COO of PRS, who runs SE, he honestly and truthfully said it in the interview that I did with him. So you can go to it. I'll put a link to it. That they moved to Indonesia for costs. It was cheaper. They wanted to keep the guitars at a certain price point. Korean manufacturers were raising the prices because of economy, right? Just like Japan prices go up, their economy goes up, they go up, and it costs more to do guitars there. But also keep in mind, they just didn't go to like whoever was $1 cheaper or cheaper. They were literally looking for a long-term partner, because really what's happening is a lot of companies are figuring out that they can't continually jump. They can't go. Like they start making guitars in Japan, and then they go to Korea, and then they go to Indonesia, and then they go to China, and then they go to Vietnam. And I'm just giving you a scenario that plays out. Like they just keep moving factories, and what they're learning is that they can't do that. It's not effective that way. The quality varies, the options are variable. So they're looking for more long-term partners. And Cortec is really, no pun intended, courting them, because they are building infrastructure to make that happen by giving them their own buildings when they build guitars, these manufacturers, and of course resources. It's not a coincidence that Cortec all of a sudden starts building PRS's SE line, but also is able to build their new amps, right? And at some point, maybe even their pedals, because they have their pedals made at a shop in the US, but maybe that can go to Cortec, because as we know, Cortec bought Digitech, and they're making DoD and Digitech now. So that's what my thoughts are. My thoughts are is that I think Indonesia is going to be a long-term strategy partner for a lot of brands for quality for a long time. I think a lot of brands who are just trying to hit price points are definitely going to focus on Chinese factories or the Vietnamese factories or India factories, and they all make good stuff. So it's not about that. But I'm just talking about, like, I feel like every time I see a company kind of partner up with Cortec, the strategy is not just like, hey, make me 600 of those and see what happens. There seems to be a strategy that is, in 10 years, who is building our guitars? What do they look like? What are we doing? And can we, since they can't seem to outrun the inflationary part of the expensive guitars just keep going up, everything keeps going up. If they can't outrun that, how can they keep us enticed with the quality and, and the desire to want to keep buying from that manufacturer? So that's why I say that the way I do. I hope that all makes sense. Like I said, I know I always get a little weird. I always kind of like hiccup in my voice where I'm stuttering a little bit because I'm not trying to offend anybody. I just want to make sure I'm clear what I'm saying. I don't want to create more confusion. I want to make sure everybody's on the same page, which is what I focus on, which is factories, which is why I've been to 35 different factories. And I plan to keep going to more. I like going to the factories. Like I said, if you want to know how somebody makes the food, go in the kitchen. That's as simple as that. To you guys, I hear all the time. I hear everybody tell me, and I don't know everything, so you guys can be right too. But I hear all the time, like, all these theories about where things are made and why there is. But when you go in there in these factories, you can see who physically has figured out things that do really well and other people who don't do well, and why things are happening the way they are. And like I said, I think my gut in the industry is the future is Indonesia for quality instruments being made, which is why, think of this, Ola Strandberg. I'll finish this thought with this. I kind of regret it, the interview I did with Ola Strandberg. He is such an amazing guy. It was one of my favorite interviews. I've said this to you guys many times. He's one of my favorite interviews by far. Very honest, very sincere, and super intelligent. And those are really hard combinations to find in people because, everybody has an agenda. He's got to sell guitars. And when you interview anybody on a gear channel, remember, their agenda is to sell the audience the guitars. And so, they can't really be so open, you know what I mean? So forthcoming where he was, about his mistakes and things. The one thing I didn't do in the interview, I felt like he gave me so much in that interview. I didn't want to push it any further, but I want to just tell you something. Something that I happen to know. Ola didn't tell me this, Ola Strandberg. He got screwed a lot. He talked about in the interview about when he started making the guitars, he was having them like Badlands made by a shop, right? That's, he had an idea just like us. And although his idea was way cooler, he had an idea and he basically found somebody who built these guitars for him to manufacture them for them. And without talking to smack, the first factory shop that started making Strandbergs in the US, Strandberg fans will know who I'm talking about. They did a horrible job. They were not right. And there was all kinds of issues. And it was very apparent that they either had issues building the guitars or they just didn't care because their brand wasn't on these guitars, to the point where he was getting hurt by that. So he had to change again. So he changed to, at that time, I think the next manufacturer was Washburn Guitars. Washburn was an OEM. They built Strandberg. So some USA made guitars were made in the same shop that made that Parker. Ironically, that I would have these two guitars, like almost like I set this up, right? This question came and I have these two guitars here, but these, not this particular Strandberg, because it's made in Cortec in Indonesia, but there was at a time where there was Strandbergs made in the same shop as essentially a Parker and a Washburn. But then when Jam bought Washburn, they shut that shop down and Ola lost again. And so again, I didn't push Ola on this, but I'm going to tell you this. The reason why Ola Strandberg, and I can't say for sure because he didn't tell me this, but I just know. The reason why that Strandberg is made in Cortec in Indonesia is because he was able to go to them and they were probably the first factory who could guarantee him like better line of quality, consistency, getting his prices locked in. And a lot of us talk about this. Look, it's the hardest part about a Strandberg that is made in Indonesia is the price point. It's $2,500. We're just not accustomed to that as a guitar community. We're like, that's a price point that you expect to see on a guitar made in Japan, Germany, Europe, US, maybe Canada, there's just, that's how the hierarchy of the pricing structure seems to go. But realistically, anyone who loves these Standbergs will tell you that these made in Indonesia Standbergs are amazing, right? Like anybody, they'll have a, here or there, have a problem, but as a whole, man, they're fantastic guitars. And I really believe if you want to know what Indonesian guitars are going to be like 5-10 years from now, pick up a Standberg. I think that's essentially, that's the proof in the pudding. That's exactly what an Indonesian guitar will be. They're going to surpass Korea, and they'll probably end up surpassing Japan just because of different strategies, but more importantly, scale. They'll be able to do everything those guys can do in quality, which is Korea and Japan does, but they'll do a scale that I don't think those two guys have ever considered, those two types of manufacturers. And those, so that's my thought on that. And then somewhere I have another question. Let's make sure we, hold on a second. Okay, so ones and zeros is the last super chat, so I just want to make sure I get the super chats and I don't mess up. Brian says, nope, I did Brian. GM says, hey, Phil, hi to all. Thank you, man, for the super chat. Guitar Nuts Anonymous, I like the name. Super chatted, probably just so I'd say Guitar Nuts Anonymous. Jeff says, hey, thanks for the reviews, new guitar day and amp day. Congratulations on that. That's pretty exciting. I haven't had a new guitar and amp day in a while. Although I have an amp video coming soon that I think you guys are going to love. I See Everything Twice says, hey, Phil, ever played any guitars from Dunnable? No. I hope I'm saying it right. Been seeing them around recently and would love to get your thoughts on them. I will check them out. It's like I said, most of the guitars ended up on this channel actually are from these exact questions. You ever heard of this brand? And then I'm, you know how it works. I Google it after the show. And then because I Googled it, they start pushing ads on me. And the next thing I know, like, we got to get that on the show. John says, hey, I wanted a vintage Les Paul custom for years. I recently played an R9 and a Murphy Lab. Money aside, what would you choose? I can't buy a Murphy Lab. I just don't have that kind of money. I bought a Gibson R9 and, I told you guys this very clearly. I bought 2 guitars during COVID. They're my COVID guitars. It was my Paul Reed Smith Hollow Body 2. That was crazy. Now, here's what's interesting about that. When I always say that, I just want to make sure we're clear. When I say I bought a PRS Hollow Body 2 during COVID, because I was like, it was the, depression, whatever, the whole world sucked. And I just, couldn't buy toilet paper. So I bought a guitar. No, I'm just kidding. I bought a guitar. I actually own 2 Hollow Body 2s and I have one that's really unique and cool, but I didn't buy that in the same mannerism because I got a smoking deal on that one and it's really cool. So I bought my Hollow Body 2 and then I bought a Gibson R9. Kind of the same thing as you, like, this is the Holy Grail. We got to get this. Like every time somebody was talking about a Holy Grail guitar, I got to get that. So I bought one. It's very cool. And I was actually lucky enough to go into the store where they had 2 of them and play 2 of them and pick the one I liked and offer them cash. And they gave me a deal. Okay. The one I have, I think they had it in the store. The 2 of them were sitting there for 2 or 3 years because that's how, believe it or not, that's how long smaller dealers sit on guitars like that at that price point. And so they not only were able to go to 2 years like before pricing on that guitar, but also like give me a deal. So I got a deal on that guitar. But it was still pretty crazy expensive. I mean, it was pretty like, I was scratching my head, in the cab of the truck afterwards, like, was this a good idea? Why did I do this? I mean, I have Les Paul, it's fine. Anyways, but that being said, that was already hard for me to justify. So the Murphys are probably great, but you gotta understand, it's like, I'm just not in that price bracket. So that's what I can't say. What I will tell you now, do I want to jinx this? I don't want to jinx it. I'm sorry, buddy. Let's just say I do have something in the works that I'm excited about, and I don't want to jinx it, but it might be the perfect Les Paul for me. So we'll see how that works out. But of the 2 you gave me, the Murphy and the R9, I mean, the Murphys, like everybody, I'm drooling. I don't know why. Oh, it's the Holy Grail guitar, but they're so expensive. I can't get there, man. It's so crazy. I've always explained this, just from selling guitars. Like I said, as a dealer, money is a comfort zone more than anything else. Having it and not having it. Look, if you don't have it, it's an easy answer. You don't have the money. If you don't have the money to buy it, you can't buy it. But when you do have the money, sometimes that doesn't mean you're going to buy it either. Like I said, I've learned that that's just it's a comfort thing. It's like, I don't have a comfort zone that makes me want to pick up $8,000 guitars. That's just, that's, you know, and I've said this, and I'll keep saying this, 310 episodes. And I've said it so many times. It's, look, some of the most expensive guitars that I own, I'm very upfront about the fact that I own them because companies either gave them to me because I have this YouTube channel, or they gave me such a smoking deal on them because I have a YouTube channel. I even, like I said, I owned a store for 13 years, and even owning a store, buying some of these guitars at cost, I couldn't justify some of the expenses because, again, it's a comfort thing. I just don't need a guitar that costs that much. My brain says that. And the Murphy Labs are definitely out of my comfort zone when it comes to price. It's like, you know, $7,000. It's like, oh, it's nuts. And it won't matter if there's another COVID and I'm depressed because I've already got it on my system last time. And next time I'll probably just eat Oreo cookies and, I don't know, cry. John, what is John? Oh, we did John's. D Pat says, will you or have you reviewed the new Spark Go? I haven't reviewed any of the Spark stuff. I need to. I will do it. I want to do the Spark Mini and I want to do the Spark Go. Like I said, they sent me a Spark. I think they're just not interested in sending anything else out to the channel, which is fine. But that doesn't matter. We'll get them on the channel. I'll get my hands on some Spark stuff. I really like them. Like I said, I like the Spark. I ended up picking the THR30 because I liked it a little bit more, but it's more money. So, you know, I still think they're a fair fight. I like the Spark for what you have to pay for it, for sure. Warm5 says, thanks for the show, Phil. PRS custom taper pot. Is that a gimmick? Plus, how to increase friction to a CTS pot that feels too loose and rotates too easy. You know, I don't know. I don't even know what the PRS custom taper pot is. I didn't know they had a custom tapered potentiometer. I never paid attention or looked. So I will now look and pay attention. There are certain things, like I said, look, you're versed. I'm versed on stuff. You get versed on stuff. But at some point, you know, everybody has a line where you're just not paying attention. And there's certain things that like just, even I can't go like, I don't know. Like to me, when I'm turning the knob, I just can't be like, there's obviously, you know, there's certain things that I'll notice right away and I go, I don't like that, but I haven't paid attention to that. The other part of your question is actually trickier because you were asking me basically, how do you increase the friction in a CTS pot? I don't necessarily know how to. I would imagine in some potentiometers, if that is something you're inclined to do, you can take them apart because a lot of them disassemble and maybe reassemble them in a way that makes it more friction. How I do is I just replace it. It's getting a little trickier now, like everything in life, where potentiometers, things are getting more expensive. But for the longest time, you got to understand, even quality potentiometers were only a couple dollars. So, I mean, sometimes changing a pot to me was like, okay, $4 and I have exactly what I want. Low friction one, high friction one, whatever I want. CTS, Burns, you know, Borns, you know, Alpha, you know, all just dollars and difference. So as they come up in price, I can see where more people are going to be less inclined to want to do that. But for me, the most part was just, you know, change it because it was easy. So to answer your question, I don't know how to physically change it. I just know I change it to another thing. But if you want to take it apart and take a look at it, I mean, I take them apart all the time to clean them. I never thought about, you know, seeing if anything was there to adjust to make them feel stiffer or looser. Joseph says, thoughts on Fujigen guitars with circle frets made in Japan. Look, Fujigen is amazing, right? When we talk, Fujigen is a perfect tie-in to what I talked about earlier about a great factory. But a factory, and this is why I say about World too, and this is why I said Indonesia might end up winning this long-term guitar race. Fujigen's problem is scale. They physically can't make more guitars than they're making. They're not going to make, you know, and that's why guitars are expensive. Fujigen guitars are the most affordable of the bunch. And when you think of Fujigen guitars, obviously the most famous ones is you think of like the Ibanez Japan ones, especially the Ibanez Prestige stuff. I don't know if it's true. I was once told that part of the problem with the Fujigen is that they actually make like all the wood stuff for like Lexus dashboards and stuff, and that there's so much more money in that they don't want to do guitars. I don't know if that's true. I just was told that by a source, like somebody in the community, a guitar, manufacturing source. So I thought it was an interesting thing to say. But what I will tell you is that the FGN guitars, Fujigen guitars, are very good for the price, and I've highlighted them over the years. However, the funny thing about them is every time I feel like I highlight them, I go, wow, they're a lot more than last time I highlighted them. So like I said, they're running up the cost too, and they're very good. But one thing about those guitars that is interesting to me that they're usually kind of stripped down. Again, the quality is in the craftsmanship, but they're not giving a lot of options as well too. So again, it's why I think in the long term, Indonesia will win with Cortex's strategy of, they're going to have more options, more guitars, more skill sets to do more things. But I don't think that takes away from anybody else, by the way. I don't think that because one factory is doing it at a bigger scale, obviously you can't beat Fujijin stuff. It's just amazingly made. Oh, so Olivia is also saying the issue with the original pickup is it's got sharp corners. Oh, well then definitely get the rounded over DiMarzio pickups because they feel amazing. Scent of a Wheelchair Pillow says, do you still play gigs? What kind of music do you find yourself playing? Is there much of a market for live high gain music? The answer, live high gain music, there's a great, I have a friend, Sean, who took me to a bunch of places with pinballs, and they had like death metal music playing. I'm not making this up. It was speed metal, death metal, both, right? And while we played pinball, it was freaking awesome in Tempe. And so obviously I'm gonna say, yeah, there's still market for the high gain music, for sure. Do I play gigs? Not certainly since COVID. A couple things here and there, not really much. It's just tough. Like everything got locked down, and then when it opened up, one thing that happened on COVID is like a lot of people, I found new ways to do things, new things to do. And those things have been prosperous and continue to be prosperous. So they lock up a lot of my time. So will I start gigging some more? Probably. I don't know. Probably I'd like to, but I'm also out of touch where all the open jams and all the stuff are that I used to go to. Ben says, love the show. I bought a B-stock Schecter PT. That's fastback. So that's like a Telly style one, named PT because of Pete Townsend. His originally used to play a lot of Tellys that were actually Schecter parts put together. And so when Schecter made a Telly, they just called it the PT for Pete Townsend. And then since we're like saying funny things, here's the funny thing. Schecter not only calls the Tellys the PTs, which are named secretly after Pete Townsend, but they even made one of my favorite Schecter Telly looking guitars ever was they made Tommy Lee from Motley Crue his own signature guitar. That's right. The drummer of Motley Crue had a signature Schecter guitar that was actually a Pete Townsend model guitar. That's absolutely true. Google that. Anyways, Schecter PT Fastback 2 from Sam Ash. It has G&L branded humbuckers, pickups in stock. Is that a thing? Not that I know. Schecter and G&L? No, there's no connection between Schecter and G&L that I know of in any way. The only connection Schecter would have with any brands, remember they were a parts manufacturer for a long time, but the only thing that they would have in common is with Tom Anderson, believe it or not. Tom Anderson was, there is some collaborative stuff with Tom Anderson. You'll notice sometimes the Tom Anderson pickups and the Schecter pickups that they actually make look the same. There's a connection there. I forgot, this is too much stuff to remember every detail, but you can Google that. What's the connection between Tom Anderson and Schecter guitars? And then look up Zion guitars and all that stuff. And that has to do with the pickups. Fret Level Midnight. What's up, buddy? He says, have you seen the specs on the new Firefly FSST guitars at Guitars Garden? I bought one. They're insane for $197 shipped. I have not. I will take a look at them. That sounds really, really crazy at that price point. So I will check it out. And I've done a Firefly guitar. It was a really cool guitar. Justin says, debating between a Victory RK, Bad Cat, Black Cat, or the new Revv D25, or the insane Wonderland Overdrive combo, Amplify Nation Wonderland Overdrive combo. Thoughts? Bluesy Rock. So I have not tried the Amplify Nation Overdrive, Wonderland Overdrive. I haven't tried it. The two amps that I want to try next from Amplify Nation is the Wonderland Overdrive, and what's the other one? There's another one. There's only two I want, and then I eventually wanted to get those two, and then do a rundown of all the ones he makes. I don't know why I can't think of the other one's name. But the important part of this is this is a tough question. I don't have any answers for. So obviously I have a Bad Cat Black Cat. I love it. I have never tried a Revv amp, any Revv amp ever. I have no reference of any of them. I couldn't even tell you what they sound like. I've never physically even heard a Revv amp. I have been to 3 sponsored Revv events, and I told you through the weirdness of it, every room we were in, they just didn't have Revv amps in that room, or the channel I was with did not pick a Revv amp for the demonstration. And so I have no reference of Revv amps. Victory, I have played a few Victories. I've not played the Victory RK. So again, I don't know. So that's what sucks. I can't really give you all I can tell you is I really like my Bad Cat. I really, really like it. So I don't know if that's going to help you. Probably not much, but at least you know that amp, I still like it. And then Ones and Zeros said, just because you're the man. Thank you. That was really nice of you to say. And I like your sign on, 1 and 0. And then it looked like Allison was slipped in. So we'll just, Allison says, hey, Phil, new guitar day, Wonderland Overdrive. Oh, Phil, new guitar day, a Wonderland Overdrive, and it's bee's knees. Also, I'm slowly upgrading my childhood 92 made in Korea Squire Strat. I put a 5762 pickguard on the new tuners. What bridge and block would you recommend? So back to the new guitar day. So new guitar day, but it's a Wonderland. So Allison got the Wonderland amp from Amplified Nation. That's definitely the amp I want to check out. The question about what bridge and block would I recommend? Well, obviously I really like the Vega trim a lot for Strats. And I like Godo bridges a lot, and I like Hipshot. Those 3 bridges are my go-tos for sure. Those are on almost every single guitar I have for a tremolo. It's either the Godo, the Hipshot, or the Vega. I don't really have a preference for them. There's things I like about each one for specific reasons. I mean, that's it. It's more like a thing. Like, I like the way the Vega feels a lot. It feels to me like a Bigsby. It's very loose and it feels really good. The Hipshot feels the most vintage Stratty to me. It just feels really good. And then the Hipshot is one I like when it's subtle. Because maybe you gotta understand, there's certain things I like, and the problem is I'm versed so much in these damn bridges now that I'm like, there's all subtle things I like about each one. What I would recommend to you is that what's great about that is giving you those 3 choices and telling you that I love them all 3 equally as. If you're not sure and you're kind of trying to figure out something, I'd pick the cheapest one that fits, because I can tell you all 3 are great. And so you won't feel like you missed out if you picked the least expensive one. Okay, I think we did it. On that note, I'm going to let you guys go. I have actually a lot of stuff to do. Not only am I doing all the stuff I normally do, my daughter has moved out. She's flew the nest. I am literally so I've been helping move and doing all that stuff. It's the next transition in life, right? What does that be called? I'm not quite an empty nester yet. Empty nester. I'm becoming an empty nester, right? Like, that's the thing I'm becoming now. So I have to deal with that. So, but more importantly, I have to literally deal with it now, because I have the pickup truck. And if any of you guys know, if you have the pickup truck, you are the person that helps people move. So on that note, I will let you guys go so I can move stuff. As always, thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend and play some guitar. And till the next time, know your gear.